Welcome to day 2 of the doubles brackets of the Phoenix Festival tournament. We've got another 4 matches to go over today that are contained within bracket B of the doubles category. Linked in the description below are all the forums where you can go and vote for who you think would win in each of the brackets contained within round 1 across all of the categories. But today we're going to be focusing on the doubles category, bracket B. Make sure when you go and vote you give a reason as to why your chosen characters would win. This is not a popularity contest, so a reason has to be given, whether it's experience, weapon advantage, semblance advantage, environmental advantage, etc. Now, going into the matches, the first match of today is Hazel Rainart and Bartholomew Ublek versus Carmen Esclados and Nolan Porfirio. They are fighting in the urban and anti-gravity biomes. Now, Hazel, everyone is pretty much familiar with from Volume 5. He is an absolute tank with his semblance of pain nullification, standing 8 feet tall, and being able to inject himself with fire and lightning dust and power himself up, get stronger, and deal elemental damage, like shoot fire and electricity from his fists. He's definitely one of the stronger people in the tournament overall, and he's partnered with an experienced huntsman, Bartholomew Ublek, one of the professors of Beacon Academy, who wields his thermos that can transform into a club that's also a flamethrower, so definitely a lot of skill on that team. But his other team, or his opponents, aren't necessarily slouches either. Carmen Esclados is a character that is exclusive to Before the Dawn and After the Fall, and she has the same semblance as Glinda Goodwitch, the semblance of telekinesis. Though it is a lesser powerful one, it is only able to manipulate small objects, but that working in conjunction with her weapons, her size, she can manipulate them and have them whiz around the battlefield and be very troublesome for opponents to deal with. Her partner, though, is Nolan Porfirio. He did get a bit of an expansion in Before the Dawn as well, but he fights with a cattle prod, something that has electrical capabilities, but not the most versatile weapon that we've seen in the RWBY series. And he fought in Volume 3. He was introduced as the last surviving member of Team Bronze that was introduced in the Vital Festival tournament, so Nolan, I don't think, is going to be very efficient at dealing much damage in this tournament. Bartholomew is just way more skilled than Nolan, and unfortunately, Nolan, he would be able to land some hits against Hazel, because I think that Nolan would be faster than Hazel overall, but considering Hazel already injects himself with lightning dust and fire dust, Nolan electrocuting him just wouldn't do pretty much anything, and getting that close to Hazel, unfortunately, Nolan would be taken out very easily. And with Hazel and Ublek on a team together, I think Carmen just wouldn't stand a chance. She is a very skilled huntress, a graduate of Shade Academy, but Hazel and Ublek are just much more powerful. Unfortunately, I do see Carmen and Nolan losing here, and Hazel and Ublek winning this match. Our second match, though, is the most interesting one in this bracket, as the two pairs that are facing off against one another are just so amazing with the irony that's contained within them. We have Callie Belladonna and Adam Taurus fighting together as a team versus Tyrian Callows and RWBY Rose. And they are fighting in the urban and forest biomes. The amount of irony that Blake's mother is paired with Adam Taurus and that Crow's niece is paired with Tyrian Callows is just beautiful. And yes, this was completely random. I'll link the video up above to where I showed I was randomly selecting the brackets, and I couldn't have asked for better pairings when it came to these. And when it comes to overall skill level, we actually had an exhibition match that took place before the Phoenix Festival tournament between Tyrian Callows and Adam Taurus. Now, Adam is probably the character in the RWBY series that has the semblance with the highest power level. If he's able to absorb enough power and release it outwards using his wilt, he could easily cut through a number of opponents, aura and all, but the thing is he needs to absorb that power first. RWBY knows about Adam's semblance. At least, actually, RWBY has never encountered Adam in the show, has she? She wouldn't know anything about his semblance unless Yang or Blake told her about it. So that would be pretty interesting. In this fight, RWBY would probably start off firing sniper rounds. Tyrian would likely go for close combat or start firing off rounds as well, but in the fight, the exhibition match that took place previously between Tyrian and Adam, Tyrian did end up winning, even though Adam would be able to deal some heavy blows against Tyrian, with Tyrian having his 5 points of contact, fighting with both his arms, legs, and tail in battle. It's a lot to keep up with. But with RWBY firing sniper rounds, Adam being able to block that with his weapon, and considering the force contained within a sniper round, he would be able to charge up pretty high, more so than he would have been able to fighting against Tyrian alone. So RWBY might actually be a little bit of a burden in this case, though Tyrion's skill would definitely be able to overpower Adam, and if he took a hard blow from Adam, Tyrion could be knocked out. But when it comes to Callie Belladonna, unfortunately, we don't know much of her fighting capabilities. She did take out Yuma, an assassin that was working for the White Fang under Adam Taurus, so she's got some fighting capabilities, and she uses her serving tray quite efficiently, as well as a pistol that we saw her pick up from one of the menagerie guards, so she's got a couple weapons in her arsenal we're going to give her, at least, to make it a little bit more of a fight in this. So she would be able to maybe block a couple of Tyrion's blows, and she might be able to hit RWBY over the head with the serving tray at some point. Unfortunately, Callie isn't much of a trained huntress, so I don't think she'd be able to put up much of a fight, especially up against someone like Tyrion. She would probably be knocked out first, and it would end up being Tyrion and RWBY versus Adam, unless Adam is able to knock out RWBY very quickly, because Adam versus RWBY, Adam is going to take that one most likely. But when it comes to Tyrion versus Adam, Tyrion is superior to Adam, so I do think that RWBY and Tyrion would win out over Adam, though I could easily see that RWBY making the mistake, firing off one too many sniper rounds, giving Adam enough power to immediately shatter Tyrion's aura. So this could go either which way, depending on how much power Adam is able to store up, but I do think that Tyrion and RWBY win more often than not. The third match of today is Junior Zhang, the owner of the bar that we saw back in Volume 1 and was introduced in the yellow trailer, and Penny Polendina fighting as a team versus Clover Ebi and D. Unfortunately, Clover got paired with Tweedledee, and D, he is one that fights with a club that has electricity capabilities, but he's very much a close-range fighter. Now, Clover could buff him up with good luck, good fortune, and try to help him in battle so he might be able to land a couple good hits against Junior Zhang. So if it would likely end up being D versus Junior and Clover versus Penny, and unfortunately, Penny having the air superiority in this fight, it would be very difficult for others to keep up with, though Clover could easily hook Penny with his fishing rod and be able to slam her into the ground, assuming he could overpower the rockets that are in her legs and deal with all of the many blades that she has flying around and the lasers that she can shoot out. I think Penny just has the overall advantage in this, and Junior is no slouch either. With the club and rocket launcher that he has, he can deal a lot of damage, both close range and long range. So against D is an experienced huntsman. He did graduate from the Huntsman Academies, though just barely. And he was killed off by a single manticore, so that doesn't really say much for his power. He did kill a bunch of manticores before that, but still. So D versus Junior, I would say, is kind of an even fight, but Clover versus Penny, I do think Penny would eventually end up winning, even with Clover's good fortune, being able to make lucky hits against Penny, being able to dodge the blades, etc. But I think Penny would end up winning over Clover eventually, and then D would be taken out after that. So I do think that Penny and Junior end up winning over Clover and D, but again, it's not going to be a completely one-sided match. Now, our fourth and final match of today for the doubles category is Vine Zeki and Nebula Violet versus Dew Gale and Melanie Malachite. Melanie is one of the Malachite twins that was introduced in the yellow trailer, and she fights with the bladed heels. Her sister Milsha is the one that fights with the bladed claws. So Melanie is definitely a very fast fighter, fighting with her heels, many kicks in battle, and Dew is a member of Team Indigo, introduced in the Vital Festival tournament back in Volume 3. She's the one who fights with the staff that uses wind dust in the tip, and she was able to create those numerous sand tornadoes in the desert biome. Now, however, they're going to be fighting in the savanna and urban biome, so she won't be able to use that necessarily to her advantage. She could still create the dust tornadoes, it's just there won't be any sand aspect to them. And this team definitely seems to have a bit of a mood with both of these girls and the expressions that they seem to have on their faces, and I think one of the suggestions in my Discord server was that we would call them mean girls, and it fits very perfectly. But their opponents being Vine Zeki and Nebula Violet. Nebula is another member of Team Indigo, the leader of Team Indigo actually, so she's on an equal power level as Dew, but Nebula uses her crossbow that can transform into a sword and is much more accustomed to close combat. So her and Dew fighting against one another would be an interesting fight to see. However, when it comes to Vine Zeki, he is a member of the Aesops, one of the better huntsmen in the entirety of Atlas, but we haven't seen his full capabilities. He's never once used his weapon of Thorn, which he keeps on his back and looks like it's something that could, kind of rotate out into a three-bladed shuriken type thing, a throwing weapon, but he always fights with his semblance of aura vines. He's able to create solid aura and extend it outwards to the point where he can ensnare opponents, and when he grabs hold of opponents, it's difficult to break out of unless Vine chooses to let you go. So that would probably be the biggest turning point in this battle, because with Melanie, she would have to get close combat, and when she gets close to Vine, she would probably get snared by his vines. And when it's Nebula versus Dew, they would probably face off against each other because they know each other's skill set well enough, but Vine would be able to take out Melanie and eventually help Nebula against Dew. I do think that Vine and Nebula have the advantage over this. But even if Nebula faced off against Melanie and Vine faced off against Dew, that would actually be a fun fight to see, as it would likely end up being close combat with the way that Melanie is able to dance around the battlefield. She could dodge any crossbow bolts that Nebula would be able to fire out, but with Melanie relying on her kicks, trying to deal damage with her heels, Nebula would be fighting with her sword, and that would be just a very intricate scene to see play out on screen. When it would come to Vine versus Dew, that would end up being that Dew would use her tornadoes to try to trip up Vine, but considering he can have the vines from both his arms and his legs, he would be able to get around that fairly easily, and with his experience, I think he would be able to turn the tide in his favor. I do think that Vine and Nebula win out over Dew and Melanie. So, with that being the case, those are the 4 matches that we have had to cover for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little breakdown of the doubles pairings that we got to see. My favorites, again, being RWBY and Tyrian versus Adam and Callie. We'll see how everything turns out by the end of the week. The results will be posted this weekend. Again, use the links in the description below to go onto the Google Forms, vote there for who you think would win, give a reason as to why, and we'll see by the weekend who ends up winning. There's also a link in the description below so you guys can keep up to date with each of the 3 tournament categories, the singles, doubles, and teams categories, and see how the tournaments are progressing as the weeks go by. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the Phoenix Festival tournament, are looking forward to seeing who will end up being in the grand finals of each category. Make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying it, want to see more, want to keep up to date with all of the RWBY content that will be coming out alongside the Phoenix Festival tournament. There's also the Best Music in Volume 1 poll currently going on. I'll leave a link to that in the description below as well. So hopefully you guys will look forward to more content. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7, join our Discord server, link in the description below as well, and I'll see you guys in the next video.